Hi, welcome back to Hapes Games, and I've been wanting to do this for ages because I'm a little Wario fanboy. It stems back from, my childhood, and Wario being one of my favourite games ever on any handheld and or console. Before I actually started, a quick shout out to Dave Trollan, aka Dave Nolan, who done some great graphics there, as you can see, of the original Warioland. I'm gonna hang on to that one for a while. So the intention of the video today is to cover my favourite Wario games and a little bonus in the middle of the video as well that I hadn't originally planned for, but I actually ended up learning about as I did research for the video itself. So we're going to start off with my number 4 in this case, being Warioland 4 for the Game Boy Advance. And a very, very fun platformer. Actually took the horsepower of the Game Boy Advance and really, really maxed out the graphics. It's one of the best looking games on the Game Boy Advance in my opinion. But also in general, if you look at Wario across the board, across the whole entire series, always the graphics are very, very appealing. And second to that is the absolutely amazing music across the series. And this game included has a great selection of soundtracks available. Gameplay wise, this is more akin to Shake Dimension than it is traditional Wario Land. When you enter a level in any given world, you must obtain the 4 stone chests in each level, in each world, in order to progress to the next world. And at the end of each level, it sets off a timer, and you have to get to the exit before that timer expires, or you end up losing all the gold and treasures that you actually collected. So high replay value here, and it works well on the handheld platform. So next up is a gorgeous looking Wario world on the GameCube. Now, GameCube was always a little powerhouse anyway, and this was Wario's first outing as 3D, I believe. So everything else before that was a 2D platformer. So this is really the very, very first time that he featured in a 3D Wario game. Again, really maximizing the power. Nintendo was brilliant in doing that for their own first-party titles, and no difference in this case here. First and foremost, it's an action platformer. Controls really, really well. I actually really like the camera system in this, so you can move your camera left and right and up and down using the right C-stick on the gamepad. Again, as I think as the series developed over time, all the levels are really built in for replay value here. If you don't have all the collectibles, you need certain items to get past the levels in order to face the bosses in this case. And speaking of the bosses, really, really fun and really, really varied. And it takes advantage of the fact is Wario has a lot of punching power here, so it doesn't necessarily use caps like it does in the original games to give him abilities. He's got a ton of preset abilities that you learn throughout the game's tutorials in particular. It's really unique in my opinion. It's really varied and probably slightly overlooked on the GameCube. Probably the other thing as well is it's quite rare to find. I spent an age trying to get a copy of Wario World for the GameCube at a reasonable price, and I managed to scoop it up recently, so very, very glad I did. Definitely recommend it on the GameCube. One other thing on this is it has one of the most amazing pause menus of all time. Listen up. Now a little bonus guys, and I wanted to get into actually guide how to set this up. Thanks to Super Jimtendo, aka Jimmy Two Pumps, who pointed this game out, and it's for the Virtual Boy, and it's called Virtual Boy Warioland. And I probably played about half an hour to an hour for the recording of this footage, and this game is amazing. And yes, you can emulate it. I don't have a Virtual Boy. I think they're virtually impossible to pick up, pun intended. I'm not really going to get into the game because I don't know all that much about it. From what I played, it's amazing, and it actually feels like a direct sequel to the original Wario Land on the Game Boy. But let's get into how you set up RetroArch to actually play this on your PC or laptop or whatever. Okay, I'm going to really quickly show you how to install RetroArch so you can play the Virtual Boy emulated and actually get to play Virtual Boy Wario. So download the stable version, go to the download tab under RetroArch website, there's the URL there. Download the stable version, install that, okay, then load RetroArch. You want to go to Online Updater, okay, because you need to get the core first, so basically the emulator itself, and install it on RetroArch. And you're going to keep scrolling down till you get to Nintendo. Scroll, and I think it's one of the very, very last ones. There it is. Nintendo Virtual Boy, and it's called Beetle VB. So left click that and install that. Okay, when it's installed, you want to go to Load Core and then load it. And then you want to load your content. So there's my ROM sitting there, going to load that. And there's one other thing to check for. So what you want to do is before you start the game, go to command and go to menu toggle and scroll down in the quick menu, and you want to go to options first. Now the 3D mode has to be defined for the Virtual Boy. So in this case, I have mine set to Ylitalo, okay, and that works on a 2D panel. And you can also mess around with the palette. Now you can have that default black and red that you get with the actual Virtual Boy, or you can try variations of different colors. Some of them make it look like the actual original Game Boy, for argument's sake, but I left it as the black and red for the recording of this footage. Then you go back to command and you go to menu toggle again. Okay, there's one other thing you need to do. You need to go to port controls. You go to port controls 1. By default, you will see the device type will be RetroPad with just RetroPad. You need to switch it to RetroPad with analog so you can actually move Wario, because I think there was weird controls in the Virtual Boy. So you need to make sure that you have the device type set to RetroPad with analog, and everything else can stay as default. It'll be fine. Then go back and close out of your menu toggle, and away you go. Man, I really can't wait to stream this in the future. Now my number 2 is Warioland Shake Dimension. Now I'm not going to go into massive detail about this game because I've already covered that extensively up here in the link above. I've done a full review of that game. But a really great Nintendo Wii game, a return to 2D platforming, and a departure really from Wario World, which was a 3D game as I mentioned earlier on, but an absolutely beautiful looking game, great art direction design, and probably, arguably, the best soundtrack in the entire series. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you played Wario Land 4, gameplay design is very similar to that. Now for anybody following the channel since I've started doing YouTube, would have really known what my number 1 was. It was always going to be the original Wario Land for me. I argued that this is the best game on the Game Boy by far, and the replay value is just so high here. There was nothing like this previously for the Game Boy essentially. But the other thing was, I am a Mario fan, but I'm not a massive Mario fan, maybe character wise. And this character always interests me because Wario was a bit of a bad boy. And if you remember, this is actually a direct sequel to Super Mario Land 2 on the Game Boy. And Mario actually fights Wario at the end of that game. So it's like a bit of a, revenge tale. Well, not necessarily a revenge tale, but more so that Wario finally gets what he wanted, a ton of money. And its open-ended gameplay as well was great because, every ending was different. There was multiple endings based on how many treasures you found and how much gold you found, which again increased that replay value I was always talking about. And first and foremost, that always kind of set the tone for the entirety of the series. What was the series mostly known for? It was known for great gameplay, great soundtrack, replay value within its levels, tons of secrets to find, and variety, so much variety in its level design. So for me, without a shadow of a doubt, I can pick this game up, I can play it. I must have beaten this game over 50 times and I can still play through it with ease so many times over, and it's not just nostalgia, it really holds up in my opinion. So guys, that's it from my list. I want you to share down in the comments what are your top 4, top 5, or whatever you want to do. Share from rank maybe 1 to 5, what's your most favorite, and maybe there's a couple of games that I've missed, because there's a lot of the mini game Wario games that I really haven't covered here. But if you've liked what you've seen, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.